folks, while we set up, I'll just say a word of welcome to all of you. I think, thank you. So Move 2021 was last year, but it feels like it was last month, right? And I think it's fantastic always to be here, but probably the thing that is most exciting about the last year and the current moment for us right now is that it feels like a set of innovations that we've all worked on here, and right, I see a lot of familiar faces in the room and a lot of new ones, but across all the innovators in the room, startups, classic sort of mobility leaders, it feels like the last year and what's happening right now that's different from before is that a set of innovations in shared mobility, connected vehicles, data that have sort of been brewing and developing maybe a little bit slowly within startups are increasingly becoming more mainstream, right? And my goal today is to share with you some of the lessons from the last year for us, and hopefully it's just the start of a conversation that we can continue after the session, where I'd love to learn from all of you what you're seeing. But in the last year, what we have seen, across, since we last met at Move in November, we've launched at least 10 new countries, 20 new markets. We've launched with multiple OEMs, dealer groups, leasing companies, rental companies. And what we're seeing is increasingly there's a merger of a set of innovations in electric vehicles, connected data, automations that have been brewing for a while that are finally being adopted at scale by commercial fleets, delivery fleets, and of course shared mobility. So again, I'll start by sharing with you some of the lessons that we've seen over the year, and hopefully we can leave some time for Q&A here and then outside. But welcome. So, and I didn't introduce myself in case some of you joined late. My name is Aarjav. I'm the founder and CEO of Ridecell. So I'll start by talking about some goals that are shared across all fleet-driven businesses, right? Whether they are shared mobility businesses, subscriptions, leasing, commercial fleets, all of them want to increase or optimize utilization, and increasingly they want to be more sustainable, which is fantastic, right? The second goal that all of these businesses and organizations, share, even cities and government fleets, that we've added maybe 10 of them just in the last 12 months, is they want to operate efficiently and effectively, right? Especially over the last year, we have seen that as, it's harder and harder to recruit people, right? They have lots of options. More and more recruiting is harder, even as people work remotely, and that introduces some complexity. And so it's become more and more important from a retention perspective, whether you are a leasing company hiring operations people or you are a startup hiring technology people, to allow them to operate more effectively, right? Tools that help people, whether they're maintenance technicians or leaders in technology operate more effectively are becoming crucial for retention. A third goal that all these businesses and organizations share is enabling easy and scalable access to their vehicles, right? Again, whether you are providing access to your employees or you are providing access to, a rental car company providing access to its customers, it's become more and more important that your users can access the vehicles easily. And finally, but not sort of least, minimizing risk is important, right? When you introduce new technology, there's an inherent risk, right? As much as a technology person, I love, the adoption of technology. Ultimately, it has to contribute to reducing, not increasing the amount of risk. But as you increase access to vehicles, make it simpler and more easier for people to access it, it becomes even more important that your platform can reduce the amount of risk that you're exposed to, right? So if we put this all together, all fleet-driven organizations, they share these four goals, right? Optimize utilization and sustainability, be able to operate more efficiently and effectively, especially from their employees' point of view, make the access to their vehicles more scalable and easy, and to minimize risk. And what I want to share with you today is lessons from the last year across our customers, across segments of how they are doing some of these things and some of the opportunities that we see in the broader market. So let's start with sort of the elephant in the room, right? Look, technology in transportation has been around for decades, right? And connected vehicle technology in particular has been marketed at events like Move for more than 10 years. And the experience of startups and large classic mobility operators used to be very different, right? If you talk to a very large leasing or rental fleet, they would say, look, I have 300,000 vehicles, I have over 1 million vehicles. I have telematics in half of them, but I'm not yet seeing the ROI, right? This is what, sort of the dominant experience used to be, right? And what we have seen is that in order to deliver this ROI, whether it is from aftermarket telematics providers, like Geotab, or directly, from OEMs, and increasingly OEMs, particularly in Europe, give you access to data. The difference between the technology remaining just technology and delivering impact is automation. Let me explain what I mean by that, right? So, first of all, increasingly now we have access to data not only from OEMs or telematics, but from the vendors, right? So whether it is your fleet management sort of vendors, it is your maintenance vendors, almost everybody, the leading companies in each space have an API, which means that in theory you should be able to diagnose what is wrong with the vehicle, call an API to book an appointment with your maintenance dealer, figure out if it is critical enough that you should take the vehicle offline and disable or enable access to the vehicle, right? But until you have an automation platform that allows you to put all of these things together, what used to happen is the data would end up on a dashboard, right? So you have 50,000 vehicles or 500 vehicles with amazing telematics. All the data ends up on a nice dashboard where somebody has to look at it before they can get value out of it. And what we're seeing is that automation platforms, whether they are developed in-house or in partnership with somebody like Ridecell, enable you to detect that, hey, there's a critical issue with the vehicle. Maybe there's carbon monoxide leaking into the cabin. This is a real example. And not only, I don't need to have a person see that to make a decision. My platform can distinguish that from, some informational alert that the vehicle is giving me. It can take the vehicle offline. It can request a vendor to come and pick it up and fix the vehicle, and it can swap the vehicle out for another vehicle. And if you can do this entire thing without a person having to look at a screen, right, or go to a vehicle, then you have automation, right? So what is critical is not only to, again, add more and more connected technology or more and more, technology to make sort of apps to make the UX easier. Both of those are critical, but connecting them so that you can complete the whole loop is what delivers the ROI. And to quote one of our partners right here, I think in the UK we launched about 3,000 vehicles with one of you just about 3 weeks ago on an average Friday. And this is the kind of quote you're looking for, right? You know your technology is working when your operational managers tell you that the moment you turn on the technology, you're saving 1 day per rental contract. Because if you're not seeing that kind of ROI, then technology is still a theory, right? So, what the key here is how can you create the technology platform through a combination of your in-house technology and partners like Ridecell or others that can allow you to take these insights and make sure they don't just sit on a nice screen, but they get transformed into action, right? Now, going from automation to sort of the next step, right? What we see is that when you can use digital access technology, the ability to lock or unlock a vehicle, not only to make it easier for consumers, or end users to use a vehicle, but also the fleet operations people, maintenance people, vendors. When you're able to have multi-role digital access and you combine that with automation, that enables even higher ROI. Let me explain what I mean by that. Let's say that you have the ability to control entry in a vehicle with telematics, right? And increasingly OEMs are going to expose this technology. And first of all, you need to be able to do this across makes and models of vehicles, right? It's not very useful if your platform only supports one kind of hardware, right? A large enough fleet sooner or later is going to have multiple kinds of telematics, multiple kinds of OEMs, makes and models. But even with technology that enables you to lock and unlock most of, if not all of your vehicles, what you need is to enable this technology to be accessed not only by the end users, but also your vendors. Because if 5% of your vehicles are broken down on a given day, you want your vendors to be able to use the technology you have paid for to be able to access the vehicle after hours and fix it, right? And so enabling access across roles in a compliant way, in a secure way, is really important in order to deliver the ROI. Because then you're getting more out of the telematics that you put in the vehicle. So, what are the different kinds of ways in which you can use multi-role access, right? your maintenance folks can go and pick up a vehicle. They don't have to wait for the customer to have a convenient time to hand them a key. As you inflate more and more electric vehicles, especially in commercial settings, the person who uses the car or the van will not always be the person who charges the van. So if the person who charges the vehicle has to go and find a key, in your massive operation, it's going to be hard, right? Enabling digital access allows somebody else to take care of or to help with charging, to swap out vehicles at chargers. When you do lifecycle or portfolio management, if in a given week or on a given day, you don't have as much demand from, short-term rentals, being able to move a vehicle into your mid-term rental portfolio, manage the life cycle really has huge impact. And minimizing downtime, right? Being able to say, hey, that vehicle has a problem, I'm going to get it fixed very quickly overnight, again, reduces downtime. So the thing we find that's valuable is how can you take technology that controls the vehicle, enables you to lock, unlock, or control how it starts, and use it not only for the end users, but also for all of your employees and vendors and contractors. The third thing we're seeing is that pretty much any fleet that has enough usage, particularly in commercial settings, leasing companies, rental companies, delivery companies, is going to have critical maintenance issues, right? It's impossible to have a perfect fleet. And when that vehicle has a critical maintenance issue, do you need a human being to look at the data? Because the more your fleet grows, the more it's going to be impossible for a person to look at each vehicle and find the critical issues. So what you need is something that automatically detects a critical problem. Hey, that van has a punctured tire. And not only detects the problem and tells you a nice alert in your email so that your inbox overflows, it actually takes the vehicle out of circulation, reassigns a different vehicle to the person, and assigns this vehicle to a vendor who can now unlock it. So if you can automate that entire series of actions where you detect the problem, not only as a unique vehicle code which is different for every different OEM, but as a problem, analyze it and say, okay, is this really critical or is this just some nice to have information? Automate the entire workflow from taking that vehicle out of circulation, giving access to that vehicle to a maintenance person, and reassigning a new vehicle. Then you've closed the loop, right? And closing this loop is critical. But it sounds very, very simple to close this loop, but in reality it requires you to build or have a platform that can integrate with every telematics vendor, every make and model of vehicle, and all of your partners in maintenance and operations, right? So how do you now take that automation with digital access and minimize risk, right? Especially as you enable people to use these vehicles without having to hand keys to them. How do you make sure that people are using these vehicles in the right way, right? That whether they're employees or contractors or consumers, that folks are not creating more risk. So let's take an example. If you have control access vehicle in a commercial fleet, let's say it's doing deliveries, a frequent problem that all the large e-commerce and delivery fleets face is that their drivers leave the vehicles unlocked and running. Right? They have very little time. They have to deliver 400 packages in a day. Routinely in your neighborhood, you will see these vehicles with the engine on, sometimes a diesel engine that's just on, right? And this packages in the van. That's both polluting, right? Not effective from a cost perspective, and unsafe, right? Right here in London, e-commerce vehicles get stolen once a month. So what can you do about it? Well, if you have not only the hardware for lock and unlock, but automation, what you can do is sense, right, that the driver is not in the vehicle anymore, shut down the vehicle, lock the van, immobilize it, and then when the driver returns, automatically start it again. Now to do this, you will require an advanced automation platform, right? You're not just going to be able to buy car sharing hardware from vendor X and be able to make this work. You really need something that works at scale, not only in a lab. And so, but the technology to do that is already available, right? Let's talk about detecting other kinds of risk, right? If you have a large enough fleet and you don't have people watching every single vehicle, eventually, a vehicle will get stolen, right? It's a matter of time. And when that happens, how can you automatically detect it, right? How can you detect that a vehicle is not with an authorized person? And how can you automatically prevent that vehicle from being used so that when the vehicle stops, it cannot be started up again without a key? Again, with deep partnerships with tier 1 suppliers or OEMs, this capability is already available today, right? Our customers use it at scale. In fact, we have the entire range of vehicles on our platform now, from a two-wheeled electric scooter or bike to an 18-wheeler, and we have with our partnerships with OEMs and tier ones, we are able to prevent an 18-wheeler from being started if it was stolen. And not only do you need to be able to control the vehicle, you need to also be able to automate the set of compliance or law enforcement things that you can do. And again, all of these things are now possible. So if I combine all of the lessons that I've shared so far, what we're seeing is that in order to deliver ROI on connected infrastructure, which you've all already invested in, you need to not stop at just having lots of telematics in vehicles, but having automation that actually uses that data and makes it useful. But if you can then add one more step, digital access, or if you already have digital access, if you can ensure that you use it not only in an app for consumers, but across multiple roles, then that drives a major transformation in the business, right? And so again, the most exciting thing about what we are seeing right now is that a lot of the innovations that all of us worked on, right? Not only customers and partners, but even competitors of ours in the room. For the first time, these are becoming mainstream, and these are becoming mainstream at massive scale, right? They're going from, the market has evolved from launching new cities for a shared car sharing fleet to launching, multiple countries in parallel for the largest rental and leasing fleets. And that's a very exciting moment because technology is only as advanced as the people it impacts, right? If you have the coolest technology and it cannot actually advance a business or how it operates or the end users, it's not as impactful. So what we're seeing is the ability to leverage connected vehicle and digital access technology, not only for one kind of user, the end user, the consumer, but for the enterprise across different roles, connecting these insights with automation and digital vehicle control. That is what creates an optimal, sort of set of values for the drivers, the vehicles, the fleet themselves, and the fleet managers. And so we are Ridecell. We are fortunate to work with several of you here in the room. We operate globally out of the Bay Area, but also France, Germany, Spain, and India. We have been fortunate to raise over $200 million now, including from multiple OEMs, multiple insurance companies, and great financial investors. And I would love to have a conversation with each one of you, both right now, because we have maybe 3 minutes of Q&A, and afterwards in the room. Thank you.